Yes. Okay. Welcome everyone to the August 15th meeting of the Militarized Equipment Ad Hoc. We have with us slightly smaller group. Commissioner Jordan is out this evening. Commissioner Jackson Castana and I are here. From community members, we have Jennifer Tu and Erickson Amaya. From the department, we have Lieutenant Daza Quiros, Lieutenant Turabio, and Chief Allison and Lieutenant Febble. Let's see. We should talk about the schedule going forward because we talked last time about adding days. We are every other Monday, and then we talked about adding a few days. We have some restrictions or limitations on scheduling. I know that Mr. Lizzie Pullen is now on sabbatical. I know that Ms. Tu cannot make Thursday this month. Commissioner Jordan and I share, are also on outreach committee, which meets on the off Mondays. And we've moved that, but we moved that to the Thursdays that we had proposed, unfortunately. So for now, we've got the Mondays, and that adds for us 2 additional Mondays. I am looking at next week, the 22nd. I am purposefully skipping over Labor Day. And I'm looking at the 19th. Thinking about the number of policies that we have remaining are 1, 2, 3, 4 days, not including today, enough for our purposes going forward, or do we want to add or try a different day? I am looking at Ms. Tu or Chief Allison.
I'll tell you from my perspective that we're probably going to need some more days, and I know that we're making decent progress with these policies, but there is a lot, and we are going to have to bring the crowd control training bulletin forward, so that could take a couple of maybe 1, maybe 2 full meetings, I'd imagine, to get through that policy. So yeah, I think we're going to need some more days during the week.
I also agree with the more days. I cannot do Tuesdays or Thursdays this month. Might be able to next month. I'm also wondering if it would be helpful to extend beyond the 2 hours that we have, though I do feel like our ability to work asynchronously between the meetings has been still in progress.
Okay, so different day or 3-hour meetings, y'all?
Why not both?
Could be both. I think that means Wednesdays or Fridays. Thoughts?
Wednesdays are pretty open in the evenings, except for this Wednesday. This is the only Wednesday. Other than that, I'm pretty open.
I think if we're going to add days, I would give at least a week's notice, which means if we start adding Wednesdays, we're looking at 21st to begin. If we do the 21st, the 28th, the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th, that's 10 hours more. 5, yeah, 10 hours more, 5 days. We'll split up time, maybe be able to take up impact reports, and devote some time to it. I Part of me, I don't know what the most effective use of time is. I'm seeing agreement and nods for Wednesday, so why don't I start by locking in Wednesday, 6 to 8? Any objections?
Not on my part.
Do we know if all the commissioners can make that and if Erickson can?
Yeah, that works with me.
I will check with Commissioner Jordan. Commissioner Jackson Chastain,
Though I am out of the country, Wednesday, the 24th is actually when I depart, and I don't get back till after Labor Day. So I think I can probably see, I'll definitely,
but you'll be able to pick back up on the 7th and 14th.
yes.
Okay.
7th and 14th, yep.
All right, that'll be the day. I'll check with Commissioner Jordan and we'll figure it out. Okay, so Wednesday, starting the 24th.
And
Okay.
hopefully we can get this done so that way we can hang on to our Fridays.
Okay, all right. Thank you all for your willingness and your commitment. Why don't we get into it? I want to turn just for a brief check-in. I got a copy of the policy, I think everyone did, of K7 and Lieutenant Thomason's edits to it. I won't take too much time on it since he is not here for it, but the main change that was mentioned was this section right here, the coordination with other jurisdictions. And it now states that military equipment should not be used by any other law enforcement agency or member in this jurisdiction unless the category for the military equipment is approved for use in accordance with this policy, as per our discussion from about 2 weeks ago. I think this is the main change. I did see some other changes that were also in the document. I think this was the main one, and I see a note from Chief Allison here about a footnote that was removed. Knowing that there are going to be some changes probably coming soon, maybe Chief Allison, you want to walk us through some of those changes and what, if anything, we need to watch out for, or come back to perhaps?
Absolutely. So the footnote that was in there referenced the court order, and it specifically referred to a temporary injunction issued October 28th of 2020, George Floyd protests by the federal court, Judge Spiro. That court order is going to get basically replaced with a permanent injunction from one of the lawsuits that we're going to be close to here soon. So we're going to have the policy reference a very specific temporary order that was going to get repealed here very shortly. So I thought we leave it general with court order without the specific reference of that one court order, which will probably be done very shortly.
And does that court order have any implications for some of the other policies that we might be looking at?
Yeah, just training bulletin 3G. That's it.
For the non-law enforcement, help us out with what 3G is.
I apologize. It's crowd control, crowd management.
Appreciate it. I think we will take that up in one of our next meetings. Anything else or any thoughts about K7, this change, or this too?
Thanks. I know I'm just repeating myself. I'll try and be brief. I still want to really encourage us to think about the implications of equipment that could be approved, that the category may be approved, but may be used not in accordance with the department's policies. So things I'm thinking about is last time and today we'll be talking about the LRAD. If another agency brings in an LRAD, which, you know, it's not just the same category, but it's the same equipment. But if they don't have any restrictions on not blasting it within 50 feet of someone or not continuously doing it, that could lead to intended or unintended hearing loss permanently. So just something I want to continue to raise as an issue we should be thinking about. And otherwise, that's I promise to be brief, so I'll stop there.
Anything else on K7? Thank you for your thoughts. Going once, going twice. All right. Lieutenant DQ, can I turn it over to you for LRAD?
There you go. Yeah. Let me share my screen and see if it works. How's that? Can you see it? Perfect.
Yep.
All right. So I'll go up back to the top. I know we kind of skipped around. And again, I think everyone remembers, I did a bunch of research with this. I spoke to our hostage negotiating team members and had them actually walk me through the LRADs that we had. I contacted the company and had them kind of give me some PowerPoints and explain the LRAD in general, and then did a bunch of research everywhere from Santa Rosa to the East Coast in New Jersey to a couple neighboring cities out here, kind of just to figure out what's going on. One of the things that I did stay away from and clear from, and we can get into this, I know it's kind of talked about, was some cities and counties mentioned degrees and angles. I think that gets a little complicated. I think everyone can kind of agree to that when they say you should be at a 15-degree angle, you should be at a 35-degree angle. I didn't like that per se. I think that just gets too confusing for everybody, and I left it in feet. I think that's safe to say, and I think kind of everyone hopefully can agree with that. So I stayed away from angles. I just didn't like it. I thought that just sets up, it sets us up for failure. Let's just be honest, because someone could say, no, you're at a 19-degree angle. You weren't at a 15-degree angle. And so I left it at feet. I think we're okay with feet. So again, just going through this, I know we discussed that just a value statement and going through here. I think we're okay with everyone saying the authorized uses, and also I think one of the things that we're discussing right here that I didn't get a chance to look into was talking about the mental health crisis, but also not just saying that it's a person with a mental health crisis, but is the person actually armed? So leave it as maybe just a armed person or an armed subject. I think that was one of the things we were talking about, where it's a barricaded and or armed subject and getting away from the person suffering from a mental health crisis. So any thoughts on that? I know other agencies actually have this in their policy. Everywhere from the Bay Area to even the East Coast is one of the things of using this as a de-escalation technique for establishing communication with people with mental health crises.
So I guess I can start off, which is that it just seems, I would rather not have it in here. It just seems odd to me that we would need to specify necessarily that a certain class of people who are experiencing a mental health emergency or crisis, that is the population that is being targeted by the LRAD. I think it was John Lindsay Pullen who said it last time. I don't think that's your target population. I think you mentioned what your target population is. People who are armed, people who are barricaded, people who you need to have some means of communicating with them through some sort of loudspeaker or through some sort of like announcement system. And I think that it's something else that you're trying to get at. And I would rather it not be in this policy just for the sole purpose of, I don't want to think that this thing, which is something which I don't think it's fair to call it a giant loudspeaker. There's something beyond that. has as one of its authorized uses someone who is in a mental health crisis.
No, I totally understand everyone's perspective. Jennifer, anything? Agree?
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking at the armed subjects part of it, and I'm wondering, would this be used to establish communications, or would the warning tone be authorized for use in that situation?
I think it could be both. I think mainly it's for barricaded and or subjects. We can go down and look at the warning tone policy, whether it's to deliver a distraction or actually gain attention. So it can be also to gain attention. Hey, we're going to be in the front of the house and I'm going to put the warning tone so that way I can get the attention of the subject or subjects inside the house to establish communication.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the warning tone could be seen either as a escalation or as a just something that puts people on edge. I think last time John Lindsay Poland had described it when someone is mental health crisis that something squawking at them is not going to de-escalate the situation or help people move into a calmer space. And the same seems like it should be true for anyone, whether they are in a mental health crisis or in a different kind of crisis.
I can't agree with you anymore on that. I think one of the things for this policy and all the policies, not an end all be all, but just kind of what we can and can't do. But it's just like any other situation we go to. We have all these tools that are accessible to us and we have resources. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to utilize it all the time. We've had cases where we could fly a drone or put a robot somewhere, but if the person believes that they're being chased by aliens or something, I don't want to produce something to that person where it changes that person's state of mind or makes them believe more that, yeah, an alien's trying to follow them, and here I am introducing a robot into their house. That doesn't help. Again, these are things that a bunch of watch commanders and tactical commanders and incident commanders always look and address. But absolutely, if we believe that the person's in a chaotic state, yeah, we're not going to be trying to issue a warning tone if we believe that's going to instigate the situation or cause something that we don't want to happen, but we still have it accessible to us.
I do like how you use the words establish communications with, and I wonder if putting that at the beginning of number 4, so LRAD may only be used to establish communications for the following specified situations would be helpful.
So everyone, okay, got it. I'm fine with taking out G. Again, this was just something that I was kind of researching, looking at what some cities did. Again, there's some things that some cities have more of and have less of. So,
Chief Allison?
I just want to ask, I was curious about what about establishing communications within individuals that might be hiding in open area searches? So I'm looking at the categories, and so if there was a yard search, we might deploy a canine, but we want to announce out to individuals who are hiding any kind of opportunity to surrender before the deployment of the canine, depending on how big the area or the field that we're searching is. So maybe an open area search for individuals who are wanted for, violent crime or felony, something along the lines similar to our canine language might make sense. And because I think that, establish communication with a subject suffering from mental health crisis, if just in general for me, probably wouldn't be enough, but if they're either barricaded or armed or have committed a felony, then I think the other categories would just fill in those situations.
Would the search warrant cover that situation?
The search warrant's more for a residence or a building of some sort. So I'm thinking of somebody who's hiding in a yard that's outside, and we want to call out to somebody. And from a safety perspective, we want to make it known that we may be conducting a search, we might be deploying the canine, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to surrender before those things happen.
How about I maybe put barricaded and or yard searches of armed suspects? I can always change this, but I see what you're saying, Chief.
And not to mince words, but I think, some of it should be, of suspected armed subjects. Again, I'm thinking of somebody who is wanted for homicide. He may or may not be armed at the time. We don't know for sure, but maybe he's got a warrant for his arrest. You don't know for sure he's or she's armed at that time. It certainly has a violent crime. I'm going, I don't have the canine policy in front of me. I thought the way the canine policy outlined the usage was really well done as far as, it has to be a serious issue that's at hand here to deploy it. And I think that, something along the lines of violent felonies or armed individuals could cover it.
Eric Sinamaya.
Yeah, I had a quick question when it comes to like the subject being barricaded. What if they're like barricaded with others, or in a place that has other folks, maybe elders, folks that have mental health issues, or even folks that are pregnant, just other folks around. Like, does that change the usage of this equipment in a situation like that, full of others?
No, not that I can think of. I think that's an excellent question. I think that does go into the consideration, though, whether it's barricaded and now a hostage situation where the people inside the house are now being held against their will, or if it's just an apartment complex and the person is barricaded inside their own individual apartment, apartment 2, and you have apartment 3 through 10 that have nothing to do to it. At least we can still utilize the LRAD to tell people to shelter in place and remain where they're at, or if we have to do evacuations. Obviously, I don't think we'd be using the LRAD per se for that. We'd be making personal phone calls or having to walk in there with our designated arrest teams and shields and having to extract people in different ways if we have to do that, is usually what we do. But this could also be a good tool to be able to tell people to shelter in place if we can't find a landline or a phone number for a person or persons in those apartments.
Thank you.
Chief Allison, you got something else?
Apologize, just did not lower my hand. Thank you.
I do like the idea of marrying this policy or this section to the canine policy. I would very much prefer sometimes that an LRAD be used, or at least a warning, and if that avoids a needed canine deployment or using a canine, I think that's better. I had a question, which was, don't the standard squad cars have loudspeakers? Do they?
Yeah, so we have PA systems, which is something I discussed in here. So one of the things we discovered is they're not the greatest, and for some reason, I can also give you an example. Sometimes we have our armored SUV that the system goes out. So here we are trying to use a different vehicle and trying to get the vehicle in position to utilize the loudspeaker and the PA system, but they're not the greatest. They work well, but the LRAD just has a better advantage of being louder. I don't know the decibel reading for the PA system. I know for the 100X, I believe it's 137 decibels, and the 450X, I forgot the decibel rating on that, but the PA system it works. I think it's more efficient for when you're driving and you're trying to tell someone to pull over and you're directly at a location very close to the person. I think the benefit we have of the LRAD is being able to have a little bit more distance if we need to.
Jennifer, too.
Commissioner, I wanted to check in on something you said earlier about matching this with a canine policy. And I'm wondering if you meant when there happens to be an LRAD there for it to be used in conjunction, or did you mean canine deployment? Okay.
I meant using the same language. as as what is in the canine policy, such that maybe they both will be thought of at the same time, potentially using the LRAD first.
Got
That
it.
canine policy will be some other time.
Okay, that makes much more sense. Thank you.
You know what, real quick, since everybody's asking about that, I know Lieutenant Toribio is on the line, and he was our sergeant for the canine program and helped out a lot. So I don't know if off the top of your head, Steve, if you know the language on that. If you don't, that's fine, but just.
Yeah, sure. Acting Lieutenant Toribio. The verbiage in canine, it lists specific verbiage, but in general, we're required to give an announcement, announcing our presence, announcing that a dog may be used, announcing that the dog may find them and may bite them, and then we give them time to surrender. So presently, what we do is it's our SOP to give those announcements prior to deployment of the dog. Now, to Lieutenant Dazakiro's point about the vehicle PA systems, in order to overcome the shortcomings, what we've been doing is we give an announcement in the area where we're going to start the search. We confirm that units that are on the perimeter of the entire area can hear that announcement. Now, obviously, depending on the area, they can't. So what we do is we go to different spots around the entire perimeter of where we're going to search, and we give multiple announcements with the goal of ultimately confirming that everybody around the perimeter can hear the announcement. So that's how we handle presently for canines, ensuring that a warning for the use of the dog is going to take place.
So I know for the UAV policy, I described, and this was working with the privacy committee. And we did this before the canine policy came out, and we described any type of armed suspect as a person, and we identified similar to our J4 policy of violent criminal. I believe the only difference on that one compared to the canine was the residential burglary stuff. But other than that, I don't know if that's something that you want me to do here, where I kind of describe it here of what a suspected armed person is in relationship to our J4 pursuit policy, which is what we did for our drone policy, or if I also identify it as something, I think that's what Chief Allison was asking, maybe identify it compared to our canine policy, if that's what the question was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the criteria for deployment for canines are violent, forcible crimes, similar to pursuit policy, also burglary, and then weapon-related offenses. So forcible violent crimes, burglary, and weapon-related offenses. Those are the only categories under which we're allowed to deploy canines to assist in the apprehension or search of a suspect.
And thank you, Lieutenant Toribio. That's what I was referring to, is the use criteria to kind of frame it for similarly to the LRAD.
Okay, sounds good.
Ms. Tube?
For me, I think the only other thing for this section is I would prefer to drop the suspected wording in 4F. Other than that, I am good to move on to the rest of the document. I do want to get into that sustained continuous warning tone discussion.
Are you talking about this right here where it says suspected right ahead?
Yes, sir, that one.
Okay. Deployment, the warning tone down here?
Yep, that one.
Okay. So I think as we discussed, I saw some agencies have it called a warning tone. Some agencies call it or have it called an alert tone. So I don't really think there's a major difference. I spoke to LRAD company and it's kind of either or. There are some agencies that have disabled it. There are agencies who haven't disabled it. So I'll leave it at that. I think if we utilize it correctly, I think having it is still beneficial. The only, I think nearby the agency I saw that disabled it was Santa Rosa. So if anybody's been reading policies from outside agencies and counties, I saw that the Santa Rosa one completely disabled it. There's some agencies that say that you just can't use it, but they haven't disabled it.
Last time, one of my questions, sorry, is it okay if I go ahead?
Go for it.
Thanks. One of my questions was, would it be authorized to use the warning tone for 5 seconds, stop for a moment, and then blast again for 5 seconds, and to continuously do a on, off with more on than off? And I'm wondering if we can do anything to restrict that kind of usage.
I think we can. I saw some verbiage looking at some policies, and this is something that I had kind of discussed last time, was whether or not we discuss what a continuous cycle is and we discuss what a non-continuous cycle is. Some agencies will go into depth and explain a continuous cycle is something that will last for approximately 5 seconds, and a non-continuous cycle will be something that lasts less than 5 seconds. So if that's something that we're interested in, I have no problem looking more into that and trying to include it in here so that everybody's on the same page. So that's why I kind of left it as a tone lasting 2 to 5 seconds, may be used to alert a group. I didn't get into specifics as far as what a continuous one and what a non-continuous one is. But I think the major thing, and if we're looking at, if I'm maybe understanding your question, is we're not trying to use it to annoy someone or anything like that. I think that the major factor here is trying to gain, an immediate attention of a person, right? Or as a distraction or used for our tactical team operations. So I think that's what the major goal is for the warning tone, or to, hey, there's a fire or something and I'm driving up in the hills and I'm trying to get people to pay attention and hear what's going on. If I sound this, I don't want to say that I can only sound it for 5 seconds. Maybe we can talk about, hey, if there's a natural disaster where I'm up in the hills and I need to get like immediate attention, I can sound it for 10 seconds. I don't know if that's something we want to look into, where it's a major difference for a natural disaster as opposed to sideshow activity or a barricaded suspect.
If I'm up in the hills and there's a fire, I really hope you jump straight to the message part rather than hanging on to that warning.
But I think maybe you'd pay attention if I if I put the tone on.
Questions about the tone. I see that there are volume settings in the next section. Does that apply to the tone?
No, there's just one setting for the tone. There's no specific volume setting.
What is that setting in comparison to these volume zones?
I can find that out. From what I understand from talking to them, I'll find that out.
I'll let you finish that note. The reason why I'm asking about that is because I think that if the warning tone is something that is generally in the red zone, we might want it less, or we might want it for shorter durations. If it's in the green zone and it's just kind of might be slightly louder than a loudspeaker or your siren, then we might be okay with it being a little bit more. And that's why I ask about it, because I think if we are, I think what we're concerned about is the health and safety of people who may be subjected to this, and well, that might give us some information about it. The other question I had, while we're on the subject of volume, and we'll get back to the warning tone part, is do you know what the different decibel levels are?
I know that the loudest decibel rating is 137 for the 100X. I did not ask LRAD if at the green zone, the max decibel rating is 90, if that's what you're asking. And at the yellow zone, it's 120. And then the red zone gives me the 137. So I can inquire about that if you want.
Please, because I think that may also give us more information about what we can use for authorized uses and what we don't want necessarily, or have a conversation about it.
That makes sense.
So going back to the warning tones, when I look at this section and specifically 6A Roman numeral 2, it seems to me that there are two situations that have sort of time limitations, but the other four do not. Is that how you read it?
Let me see here. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I didn't look at it that perspective as what you're saying. I think if we say when authorized for use in the field, the warning tone shall only be used and list the 5 or 6 examples, if I'm gonna go and describe 2 to 5 seconds for this specific incident, I either describe it for every other incident or give a exact timing. Is that what you're saying?
Think about it. Possibly, yes. It might also depend on the volume level. But yeah, I think that to Ms. Two's point, if we have limitations on the amount of time prior to delivering a message, it seems like those limitations may also apply for some of these other areas.
Makes sense. I didn't catch that.
The other thing I saw when I was looking at the warning tone is I see that it shall not be, in Roman numeral 4, not be deployed at distances less than 50 feet from individuals. I think I would add, is there like in a different section, there is a part where it discusses someone immediately in front of the LRAD. Is there some sort of, should there be one in here? And if so, should we also add scenarios where someone might enter that initial 50 feet in front during the usage of the warning tone?
Yeah, this is where there's some agencies, like I said, they kept at the 50. There's some agencies that went with the degrees and the radius, and I'm staying away from that. I think that's just a little easier.
Maybe just in front of, right? If enter the area of.
So you're saying we're okay with the LRAD should not be deployed at a distance less than 50 feet from individuals. And then you're also saying in case someone like walks up in front of it now.
Well, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Someone is within 50 feet but behind the LRAD. Is that what you're trying to get at here?
No, oh, I see what you're saying. No, I'm saying in front of the LRAD, not behind it.
And then if someone should not be in front during when it's deployed. Well, when you say deployed, do you mean moved or using the warning tone?
I think both for warning tone and also making the message.
Okay. Then should we also have a part that says the operator should try their best to make sure that no one's gonna, it's used in a situation where no one's gonna enter the 50 feet in front during the use?
I see what you're saying on that. Okay, we can look into that. I think there'll be times when well, scenarios, right? We're using this for whether it's sideshow, maybe a civil unrest or something. So obviously we are, I think, even way further than 50 feet on this, but there could be a possibility where a random citizen tries to, run in between us in something. So usually we do have crowd control, we have a formation, a line, or usually a block away sometimes. So if you look at it being 1/10 of a mile, right, because it's usually all the way in the back. And it's usually with our HNT follow team, and they're driving around. So I see what you're saying. Even though it is remotely, we're not literally walking up 50 feet behind the people. I mean, I think we're even 1/10 of a mile, a city block technically away from people. But I'll look
Does
into this.
this, and then when it says individuals, that includes both the public and police officers, yeah?
Yeah.
Commissioner, I think the section you were talking about was a little bit lower where it said something like precautions should be taken. It was after deployment logs. It was something a little bit lower, I think.
I think it was talking about red zone operations.
Oh,
and-
it's right there, under prohibited use. If you go down to the next page, the prohibited use section, where it says precautions need to be made when in close proximity. And so I think that's what you're referring to of needing to either tighten down what that precaution is or just restricting that use. And
Uh.
I would be personally, I would be in favor of listing that under prohibited use of it cannot be used when there are individuals within 50 feet ahead. Oh, which is right there.
Yeah, I think we talked about that when I went to
Never mind. I was looking at the old, not redlined document. And I think the language you have is already is just fine.
Are there any other prohibited uses or times when, or precautions to be taken when using the LRAD besides what you see here?
The only thing I can think of is hearing loss. Children are more susceptible to hearing loss. And I don't know if we want to consider increasing the distance or restricting use when there are children in a crowd situation.
I think that might be a little difficult. I think what, if that's something we're suggesting, I can tell you that the intelligence and the officers we have and everything is the communication that we establish with each other during whether it's civil unrest or just regular peaceful demonstrations is making sure that everybody's always, or even any type of other incident is always saying, hey, just FYI, just so you know that there's children, in the crowd, so that everybody knows, or hey, there's teenagers in the crowd. We try to establish the communication, even for a barricaded suspect. Hey, we found out that there is an infant inside the house. So we do establish the communication. But other than that, I don't know if there's any other way of.
Will you talk with LRAD about best practices when children are present? Just so that we have that check and know what they think, and we will let whatever evidence they have guide us. Appreciate it. There is a question. Commissioner Jackson Castaigne, why don't you go first?
Oh, sure. Do we also need to specify in this section what prolonged use is? Should we put a clause in there that says not to exceed the, what is it, 2 to 5 seconds?
What section are you on? And
It's still in number 2 for the prohibited use.
okay. Let's see.
Second, third sentence.
Okay, so I think that comes the prolonged use. I think that kind of goes on to with what Jennifer was also saying of continuous and non-continuous. So this is something where, again, there's some agencies who have describe continuous and non-continuous, and that's something, if you want me to look into that and apply it, I have no problem with that. Or I can also leave it alone and leave it at the 5-second mark, or again, leave it optional where, hey, if there's a natural disaster, you know, I can do it for a lot longer. Or depending on the situation of the incident. Thoughts? Would you like to see what the other policy for the continuous and non-continuous? And I can research that again. And again, it gets into the, I think a lot of agencies stick with the 5-second mark is what I've noticed.
I would say just to keep it consistent within this document, we might want to just highlight that it's not to exceed the 2 to 5 seconds that we've already identified, rather than introducing additional concepts.
Sorry, I just thought of many other questions. Sorry. So when I look at this section, paragraph 2 that we're on right now, precautions need to be made when utilizing an LRAD in close proximity to individuals. That is both warning tone and the announcements that are made, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so I think that there may be precautions to lay out specific to warning tones and announcements, and you have done so in paragraph Roman numeral 1. I think there is a third section, or number 3, or maybe number 4, that discuss specifically the prohibitions with respect to warning tones. That says, and it seems like that section discusses or starts off, prolonged use of warning tones are prohibited. The usage should only be long enough to deliver a short message. Sound cannot be directed at a person or group. And then Roman numeral number 2 that you have there under paragraph 2.
Oh, under here, this section right here?
Okay, yeah, so you copy and paste the last 2 sentences of number 2, and then Roman numeral 2 down below into its own new section under prohibited use, so that it's clear that it is specific to the warning tone.
Hold on, sorry, Jesse. Right here, you're talking about right where I just typed, correct? Are you talking about below the best practices with the LRAD when children are present?
Below the best practices. How do we do that?
That's where I just had it, sorry. Right here.
Yeah.
And say that all, obviously not verbatim here, but what were you saying? So look into.
So for your paragraph number 2, that's in
Okay.
front of you.
Uh-huh.
There are 4 sentences. Copy and paste the last 2 sentences to paragraph 4.
Got it. The usage of warning tones. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Or cut and paste.
Yeah. I wasn't catching that. Sorry.
No worries. There's still the prolonged use of warning tones from paragraph 2. Should also go in paragraph 4.
Hold on, got it.
And then Roman numeral number 2 in paragraph 2 should go into paragraph 4.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. There is a question it goes back to, I think, authorized uses. If LRAD is used to announce that residents ought to shelter in place, will it also be used to issue an all clear announcement?
Absolutely. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, we utilize so many, even social media websites such as Nixle, Nextdoor, Twitter, advising the community of what happened. So you'll have our public information officer or even our watch commander trying to communicate, obviously during business hours. But if we have anybody who's tech savvy enough and has applications, we're always announcing, letting people know what's going on, and letting people know that it's all clear and everything. I mean, one of the things as a watch commander too is when we secure the scene, usually we just knock on a couple doors anyways, letting everybody know, hey, this is why we're out here. We apologize, but just so you know, everything's fine now, and sorry for having to wake everybody up, et cetera, et cetera. But absolutely, I don't see why it wouldn't be a problem letting people know. I think in general, it'd be easier just knocking on doors and letting people know that it's all clear. But if it's a large area and depending on the type of incident and how critical it is, absolutely we can utilize that. I don't see a problem utilizing the LRAD to deliver a message saying that it's all clear. If it's a small residential area, sometimes majority of people are looking out the window and see us leaving, and we'll just knock on a few doors, letting everybody know what's up.
Does that scenario where you want to give the all clear using the LRAD, is that covered by your authorized uses in number 4?
I mean, I guess it could be a catch-all for the barricaded and yard searches, but
Disaster management.
disaster management or crowd management operations, I mean, I guess it's fine. I mean, I think we're okay. I don't see anybody. I always like to, I don't see anybody filing a complaint saying that I told everybody we're fine, but then if someone does and I didn't have it in here, it'd be kind of interesting. I'll go back to August 15th and call everybody here and let everybody know that we should have put it in.
I think the language from above kind of covers it, that it's in the specified situations, and that would probably be the end bracket of the situation.
Yeah.
I think you're good. I think we're good. Okay. Will you take us through the rest of this document?
Let's see, deployment logs. Let's see, prohibited usage, communications. Again, this is just letting communications know that we're going to be deploying an LRAD, which I think is kind of common. It's okay. We're already doing this. We're logging in through SOS when we're utilizing an LRAD. And then I kind of added a maintenance and storage here, saying that all LRAD equipment shall be stored within an OPD secured facility vehicle with limited access. I think everybody can agree to that, that should have limited access, only people who are authorized to use it. However, there are times where I think if a watch commander needs to send somebody out to grab it, it's okay, but just making sure it's locked and secured so we don't lose it.
What is SOS?
Special operations section.
Will you spell that out?
Oh, yeah.
And what is HNT?
So that's the hostage negotiating team. It was kind of funny because I was talking to them. Very rare are there actual hostage situations, but I think one of the things, if you look at them and you talk to them, they can say, you're a crisis negotiating team, but I think that gets a little too close to CIT, which is our crisis intervention team. So I think we just leave it as hostage negotiating team.
Thank you for spelling it out.
There's another thing I saw on here.
SOD under Part D, auditing and oversight, second sentence.
Section D as in dog.
Down here, sorry. Okay.
And VQ, there probably should be special operations section for that piece.
For this one too, correct, Cap or Chief?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think I messed up on that. It should be SOS still. Only because the captain now position is a little different, changed. So as far as training, I know you're looking into this. I did do some research on this. I spoke to our hostage negotiating team members, so I'm going to put this in the impact report. They all attend a post-certified, either there's two options, one being through the FBI, it's a 40-hour course, and the other one's through another third-hand party. I forgot the name of the company, but that's all included in the impact report. It's a 40-hour course, and then after they do that, then they do kind of hands-on training with their own unit as far as looking at all the different equipment.
Sorry, did you say the hostage negotiation team?
HNT, yeah. They
Okay.
attend a FBI tactical negotiating team course. It's 40 hours. There's also another course that they attend through another third-hand party. One of those 40-hour courses they attend.
Are they the ones that are going to be solely using the LRAD, or are there going to be others?
No, it's only going to be HNT. Those are the only ones who are always designated using them. Even when we do all our operations, we don't use anyone else. Nobody else uses the LRAD but them. Is that something for prohibited use? Is that what you?
No, no, I just didn't realize that. I thought,
Like anybody?
yeah, I thought, or I mean, like, I didn't think it would be HNT. I thought it would be special operations or some sort of crowd control
Oh.
management, or I'm not sure what it is that.
So under our special operations, you have all the other sections, right? You have HNT, entry, you have sniper, you have traffic, you have everybody. Well, actually, that falls under line differently, but under special operations, you have our hostage negotiating team, which is an element of our entry team and our sniper team and our drone unit. So they're the only ones who are the ones that are trained up on using this equipment, and the ones who attend training through the FBI and through the other third-hand party in negotiating.
Is the FBI training LRAD specifically about the LRAD, or is there another training?
No, they're training them on tactics and negotiating. And then they come back after they attend their training. They're part of our HNT team, and within our HNT team, the senior officers show them how to use the equipment.
Is that what you would describe as on the job training, or is there a specific course that might be post-certified?
No, there's no post-certified course for LRAD specifically. It's more on the job training of learning them how to plug it in, how to turn it on, how to secure it to a vehicle, making sure it doesn't fall off a vehicle when you're driving, how to store it properly, and the settings, volume control.
Commissioner, I was reading the Alameda County's training section for their LRADs, and I think it was Alameda County, it might have been a different agency, but their training was, I can't quote exactly what it was, but it was a fancy way of saying we read the operating manual while in the field. So the fact that OPD is making sure that officers are aware of the policies regarding the LRAD, it feels like a very positive thing here.
I assume that's going in the impact report. Got it. Okay. Not for today's purposes. I'll just leave that one alone. We could deal with that. someday.
Are there 2 training sections?
Yeah, I saw that. I just realized that. Thank you. Good catch. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to be.
Calling me out in front of my chief. I wasn't paying attention.
Those are not, they actually had different things.
They did have different things. I was looking at our what our ESU unit does and everything. That's something we don't really have an operating procedure. That's just something, I mean, we can look at the manual if we want. It's more on the job, hands-on training. So that's something I think we're fine with, unless anybody opposes to that. They could technically probably 1 sheet of paper though. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's I even saw how they operate it, and they kind of walked me through the whole thing.
I think for today's purposes, we just want to capture that we have a training section and what OPD's training will be, and that it will be adequately described in the impact reports. Whether or not that is adequate, or whether there should be more or less, whatever it may be, that will be a different day. I want to turn to our checklist about, or just how if there's any sections that we might need that are in addition to comply with 481 and the local ordinance. Assuming Lieutenant DQ that you're done. It looked like it was the end of the document.
Yeah, that's it.
Every policy needs a section about, off the top of my, how someone can register complaints and concerns. I think the way we've been dealing with that in other policies was to refer to case 7. Is that right?
Yes.
And so I think you will need a section in here refers to case 7 for any person who has complaints or concerns. Yeah. I think it goes under the auditing.
And oversight.
No, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I will get the exact language and get it to you.
Do we have that in the other policies?
So, yes, we do. Case 7, inquiry and complaint process is the exact section. Under subdivision I, as in Ian. I'm sorry, it's a separate section that's not under auditing and oversight.
Okay.
I led you astray there, sorry.
Keep doing this, it's okay.
Would it take a minute to turn to Ms. Tu's very helpful checklist? Ms. Tu, anything else?
I'm wondering if it's possible for us to have some discussion about this asynchronously between now and the next meeting.
I think that's fine, as long as another vice president or president doesn't show up to Oakland again.
We'll be fine. You're gonna say that. Yeah. Yeah.
What I don't want to put you on the spot, and obviously sometimes our jobs throw very strenuous things at us. What would be a good time frame for you in order for us to have enough time to discuss between?
So looking at the value statement for the drone, that should be done by tomorrow. I'm gonna contact the LRAD representative tomorrow. He is in Texas. He's pretty good at getting back to me within a day or two. So depending if he gets back to me tomorrow, that'd be awesome. Let's shoot for at least maybe Thursday. Because those are a couple questions I have to ask them on the questions that we have here. And then I just need to look at the other policy from I believe it was New Jersey or someone else, another agency that I was on one of my researches.
Yeah, that works. That gives us all Friday to check in and Monday before we meet Monday evening.
Yep.
Awesome.
I am just double checking whether this is in the local ordinance or not. I think it is. Right. LRAD's in the local ordinance, but it says only LRAD use as an area denial tool shall trigger the reporting requirements of this chapter, which it is not here. Which means that we don't have the same time, but I think we can still come back to it. Why don't we take this up on Wednesday? You are muted.
Are we meeting this Wednesday? Is that the day? Sorry.
No, not this Wednesday, not this Wednesday. Next Wednesday. 24th.
That's good.
All right. Great. Great work. Can we turn to 7:13? Can we turn to robots? Depending on how long this takes, I may not have us do your last one, UAS, and instead allow Acting Lieutenant to give us small introduction, a bit of chat about case 6 before we end for today.
Oops, sorry. Do you see my screen right now or no?
Do not.
Let's get rid of this. Hold on. Second. Trying to find that one.
I think this is K5 we're looking at.
Are we looking at, you want the robot one, right?
Robots is I-25.
No, 26.
No, it's 26. Yep.
Oh, sure, but not want to. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Oops, sorry. I sent this, I did send this policy out, correct?
You did.
Okay, so just so everybody's aware, I mean, obviously I put remote controlled ground system. I mean, it's kind of, we have robots, we have pole cameras. So just to explain it to everybody is, one, the robots that we have are on the ground. Obviously they don't fly like our drones. They don't record either. So it's mainly, in a sense, live stream. So what you're actively seeing from the robot, and it's going back to the remote controller, it's not recording at all. So we don't have the capability of doing that. None of our robots that we have any type of SD card, memory card to go in there. So that's one thing. The second thing is we do have pole cameras, and I included it on here, so I wasn't sure if that's something we wanted to include on here, but I'm guessing yes. And a pole camera, for instance, is exactly what it says. It's a pole with a camera on the top of it, and that was very beneficial to us when we're trying to search attics, crawl spaces, and trying to search rooftops, and you can extend the camera anywhere from 10 feet to 30 feet. And you have this kind of a similar system where you have a remote control, or I'm sorry, a screen. So it's not really remote control, it's more controlled by a person. And then we have an underwater robot. And that one looks like an Atari game. We've used that a couple of times when we're trying to find either a pistol or a car or something in the estuary or something in the water in the bay. So we've used that a couple of times. I don't think we've had any much luck with it, but it is a robot that we have that gets deployed in the water, and it looks for images such as something similar to a gun or a car or a person. We've deployed that a couple times. Those are the main things. With the robots, we do have a robotic arm that has the ability to deliver water, which we have. We've delivered cigarettes, we've delivered pizza with it. We've also been able to open doors. So the benefit of that is where you're able to drive the robot indoors and we are able to open the door, either push it, close it, etc. We've also delivered phones to people, where you're delivering phone or a water bottle because someone's hungry or someone's thirsty. We also have the ability on there, and we haven't done it, but you have a window punch and a blade to slice tires. So that's something that I did include in there. We've never done it, but that is in one of the capabilities we have, and one of the I guess tools or extensions that we have to include on the robotic arm. And then the other thing that I put is the pan disruptor, or you want to call it water blaster, that has the ability to destroy suspicious packages or even bypass locks and doors. We've never used it on a call, only because we don't have policy, so we didn't want to use it. But it does present the possibility of injury. So that's one thing that we've discussed. We've used it in training, trying to figure it out, and we've showed the entry team members, what we can and can't do. So that's something that we have here and that I've put into the policy.
What does the ground robot look like? Because I can't get away from thinking it's a Roomba with an arm.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you see
And the tire slasher.
Exactly.
Can you see my internet screen or no?
Cannot.
All right. I'll show you right now. So there's a couple different ones that we have. Can you see this now?
Yep.
Okay.
That looks much more terrifying.
This is iCore technology. We have the mini caliber right here. So you can see that it has a camera, has a robotic arm. It has propellers. It has a tracking system. It has a camera here. So the robotic arm has the ability to open interior doors, closed doors inside the house, has the ability to, sounds dumb, but we can carry a pizza in, we can carry a water bottle in, we can carry cigarettes in to somebody. We've done this numerous times, and it's assisted us greatly in trying to resolve a critical incident because someone just wanted a pack of cigarettes. We're able to deliver it to them.
So, size-wise, is this the size of a bobcat like an animal, or size-wise like a bobcat like the construction equipment?
I can play it right here and you can see it, of how, I guess it weighs about 60 pounds. Or maybe it's lighter, I'm just weak, but it feels very heavy to carry and very awkward. Actually, let's see if this just works right here, and you can kind of.
iCore Technology introduces the Mini Caliber Robot, a lightweight, portable robot specifically designed for tactical response. The Mini Caliber is an affordable small slot robot which easily fits into the trunk of a car.
So closer to the cat size.
Yeah, so that's, if you want to see more, you can, that's what the remote controller looks like. Right there, basically, just live streams. Right.
Can you communicate from the robot?
You can. You can see right there exactly what we said. Right here, they delivered a phone, deliver packages to people. We've done this before in the past. We've delivered, like I said, packages. It also has two-way communication. So it has a microphone and a speaker. We've been able to resolve incidents and give communication to people to actually come outside. So it's been beneficial. So that's what the mouse works properly here. That's what the iCore looks like. Then we have another one that's called the Avatar. That was our first generation. I'll show you right now. Very old technology. That one, it's sad to say, but you're going inside a room and I can tell you there's something there. I can't tell you if it's a cardboard box. I can't tell you if it's a dog, and I can't tell you if it's a person, but I can let the SWAT team members know that it's something there. And that's what we initially had for a very long time. I'll show you what it looked like. It looks like this.
Commissioner, I've got some questions about the general use, so let me know when's a good time to jump in with that.
That's what that one looks like, the Avatar.
Let's get through this first section then. Before we get to you're talking about authorized uses. Okay, let's get through this first section, descriptions and values and purpose. I like this purpose statement. It kind of talks about what it's to be used for. It doesn't say anything about surveillance. I think that's heard that concern specifically at the last commission meeting. Any thoughts or about these first two sections? Value and description. I think you're going to work on value.
There's just a minor typo under it says bodies or water. That'd be bodies of water. It's actually under the purpose. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Third to last sentence towards the end.
Do you ever envisioning a situation where it's used for long-term surveillance? Any of these things?
Let me give you an example. Have we done that before? Yes. But I think we got to be cautious the way we're using surveillance. I think it's more of real lifetime intelligence. So an example would be, we had an individual who was barricaded in his house. It was a domestic violence incident, and the wife was able to escape and call the police, and the person was hiding in the backyard. So we're able to drive the robot back there before we had drones to figure out what was actually going on, because we couldn't figure out. And the husband had a gun on him, and he had a gun pointed towards his chest. So we positioned the robot at a safe distance, and we just kept real-time life surveillance, if you want to call it per se, trying to figure out, okay, this is what we have. Let's keep eyes on him right there. Let's not move forward anymore. I wasn't on scene, but just having our debrief with our team, trying to figure out what happened, because we talked about deployment. So they kept on him until the battery, I think, ran out. So it was kind of, if you want to call that, I guess, surveillance, but it was more just gathering intelligence. So that's an example of, yeah, I'm going to hold it there for 2-3 hours, looking at this person, trying to figure out and come up with a game plan of how do we get this guy to, peacefully surrender, put his firearm down. We're waiting for H&T to arrive on scene. And when they arrive on scene, then we can establish the communication. Not to say that we can't now, but it does have two-way speakers, right? It has a speaker and a microphone, so we're able to talk to this person. So I guess that'd be, if we want to call it that, but other than that, that's more of a situation. Or, hey, we have a barricaded incident. I'm going to drive this robot, and if you can keep eyes on this door, is the barricaded incident, while we do something else, then you're keeping eyes on that door with that robot, and you're streaming it to your remote controller and getting real-time intel. So.
I was thinking surveillance, like if, say, you were, or not you specifically, but someone is investigating and trying to figure out, hey, I'll use this as an example. Does someone have a drug lab in their backyard or in their shed? And I can't see over this fence. I'm going to use a pole camera for purposes of gathering information so I can write that search warrant.
No, yeah, you know what's
Happened?
We have that. We can use our drones for pre-planned search warrants and whatnot. I prefer not to. We have not even used it for that yet. It's still an option in case we need to. I prefer utilizing other resources. It's always an option. I don't see us, I don't want to say that we wouldn't. I think it becomes an officer safety issue too, that we have to kind of weigh the options of, hey, if we're getting information that there might be something here, if I have a 30-foot pole that I can utilize to keep me away from danger to see if something's there, yeah, to gain some intelligence to write a search warrant on something, I don't see that being at all, because then you kind of go to the expectation of privacy, right? So is it available to the naked eye? Yeah, where I walk by and I see something with the curtains open, absolutely, I think we're fine. Like, I see something here, so I'm okay. If you're saying now I'm going to use a 30-foot pole to go somewhere and conduct a surveillance, then it's not in view of the naked eye, and I'm actually kind of violating, I think, your Fourth Amendment right there. So right there, I don't see us actually using it. I do see us utilizing maybe an officer safety tactic, though. Okay, there's something here that I can't get to utilizing a drone or a helicopter. Hey, get that pole cam. Is there a drug lab here? because someone's calling in right now and they're saying that there's a nasty smell, I don't, stuff like that. But as far as trying to write a search warrant and gain information, I don't see that, because then it's not to the naked eye, and I'm actually infringing in your property where it's not visible to me. So I wouldn't be able to do that anyway.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'd like to see that in a value statement, to the extent that you can synthesize that into, I don't know, 4 sentences. You don't need to do it on the spot. I won't put you there.
Okay.
Anything else on this first 2 sections? All right, let's go to general use.
There's a couple instances, like I can say, I don't think we've ever used it for missing or lost persons, but I don't want to say that that's not an option, if that makes sense. I think that's like, we have so many parks and fields in Oakland that it'd be, I think, unfair to us and to that missing person to say that we can't search for them using the robot, if that makes sense. If there's like a crevice or something that I can throw down the robot down there as opposed to a drone, maybe. So I think that's unfair. We've never used it really for sideshow events. But I think it'd be unfair for us to say not to use it and limit us. I don't see us using it for sideshow events. Why would I, put the drone out there and it can get run over? But I don't want to say that we can't. We run the risk of, hey, there is an option for me to actually use it for a sideshow event. Again, we've mainly used it for, again, barricaded suspects, people inside houses, such as that. But I don't want to limit myself to saying I'm only going to use it for that.
What do you envision with hazardous material releases?
I guess you can say oil spills. I guess you can say other chemical agents. I think we have, it doesn't have any type of technology to read the air, if that makes sense, and tell me what's in the area. But it does give me the tactical advantage of being at a safe distance away and being able to drive to figure out, did actually something spill out there where I can't get nearby? Or is there maybe, hey, there was an explosion and maybe it is a meth lab. Can I just, drive the robot over there to figure out what we have? So I would consider that. Again, it can't read air quality, doesn't have that capability or anything. It just gives us that added distance and safety.
This might be a question more for the previous section. What's the range for remote control to the robot, and how much distance would the robot travel, assuming that you stayed within remote control range?
Good question. I can look back into the manufacturer policy. We've had incidents where sometimes we'll lose communication, specifically with the avatar. The iCore, not so much, because it's better technology. I don't have an exact meter or feet distance. There have been instances where we've deployed the older robots, and because of the cement concrete walls and stuff, we've actually lost communication. So I think it's kind of the environment and what we have present to us. But I can look into that if you like. And maybe that's something that can go in the impact report or something.
It came to mind when Commissioner Shia's question about the hazardous material, and it made me wonder how far you would have to be and how much distance you would be able to go.
Got it.
All right, I want to, if it's okay, I want to toss a couple of scenarios I'm thinking about that I think could be authorized by this policy, and just check in on how we feel about that. And they're going to be a little far-fetched. Just going to warn you now. Okay, so first situation is you had mentioned a tire slashing one. And one question I have is it seems like you could deploy this into a sideshow and do some tire slashing. Obviously far-fetched because then your robot might get run over. And so I don't think that's super realistic, but it seems like that would be permitted by this. And then similar to that would be if you have, it looks like if you have someone that OPD believes is dangerous, could the tire slasher or the glass breaker be used on that person? Is that permitted? Like, again, leaving aside the question of, well, that person might stomp on it and that's an expensive robot. Would that use be permitted?
Great question. So I think let's go with the first one. I don't envision myself using it for 150 cars in sideshow to go and slash every car tire. I think that's, I don't see that. Again, we'll get run over. I see it more as a scenario such as something that just happened yesterday, or I believe on Friday, where there was a vehicle occupied, stolen vehicle occupied by unconscious person. And I believe maybe he might have had a firearm on his lap or something. I think in those situations is where we can kind of get more bang for our buck on that, where you can go and disable the tire. On that incident, the person awoke and started raining police cars. Fortunately, no officers were injured. Fortunately, the suspect wasn't injured. And we're able to take that person to custody. But I think on some situations when we have the possibility of possibly demobilizing a vehicle and taking away that option can maybe benefit us greatly. We've had multiple times here where we're utilizing the armored SUV, the emergency rescue vehicle, and trying to pin vehicles. I think it'd be an added tool if we can maybe take away a tire from that. So I see it used more to our benefit in that situation, as opposed to just randomly driving around in sideshow and slashing tires. I think Chief Allison has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just echo. I'd look at it as if we could have an officer legally go in and do it, but the way in using the robot would make it safer to conduct that action, then we would conceivably use it for those purposes. To your point, as to I'd look at it from the sideshow perspective. I wouldn't send the robot in there trying to disable a bunch of vehicles in a sideshow, because there could be conceivably a lot of vehicles. It'd be a safety issue, just as I wouldn't want to also send a bunch of police officers into a sideshow and disable a bunch of tires, whether using stop sticks or other means. So I would always, to the lieutenant's point, it was a singular action where an officer could carry out that action, but it would be safer for the robot to do that action than we would use it for that capability.
What about using the tire slasher or the window smasher on a human?
I don't see that happening at all. I don't see a possibility of us having to use it's I guess if you look at the tire slasher, it's I guess similar to a razor blade that you use for shaving, if not a little sharper. And then the window punch is just similar to the window punch that you have to smash a window. I don't see us at all using that against a person. I see it more as us leveraging ourselves and getting a tactical advantage on situations where, such as someone's barricaded inside a vehicle and trying to drive away, or maybe us having to, hey, it'd be safer if I punch out the window as opposed to sending a beanbag through the window, only because maybe there is a child on the couch, 20 feet away. I'd rather just punch out the window than send a beanbag through the window. So that's more of a situation I'm using it for and thinking. It gives us another tool, because those are considerations where we always have, where hey, we're doing bean bags, but hey, just be mindful, there's kids inside the house, or we are making an announcement such as similar when using the LRAD, hey, everyone stay away from the window, stay away from the window. We are going to be bean bagging the window, and we give multiple announcements. So if we can even do it where we can, window punch a window, as opposed to even sending a bean bag, that's even added benefit.
Would you be open to adding a restricted use against using the, I don't know, the robot parts against individuals?
I'll look at that. Let me do some research to other cities, because what I don't want to say is it's prohibited. And then here comes a situation where, hey, if I could have used the robot claw to hold this person's arm and pin it against something and hold it, and we could have run inside, we could have saved this person's life. I think I don't want to say it's an end all be all, but let me look at what other agencies' use policy is and see what they actually say on that. I don't know if you're okay with that, Chief, or.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I definitely think if it was, I mean, now we're getting into the robots as a means of a use of force, which obviously is not contemplated in our K3, which outlines use of force. So, but I am thinking of agencies. There's actually an example of robot use in Dallas when they had the active shooter and they used the robot as a force option. So I'm curious on maybe what Dallas PD did.
I think, Chief, you hit the thing that I'm concerned about, which is use of force. These things are turning into uses of forces, or could be, not just on people, but on property, on the vehicles that they are in, or in whatever structures or rooms that they might be in. And I think that's when we have to be very careful and have very clearly delineated rules and guidelines for said use. I'm especially looking at one of the detachable tool section, and it does say an OC canister can be used, which is definitely a use of force. And that sort of gives us a little bit of language that might talk about how we might. But I do think it needs to be fleshed out some. Is the best way to say it. I would also note that the authorized use here does look very similar, if not identical, to unmanned aerial systems, which is good for consistency. I think the main difference is the fact that there can be uses of force in here. I guess besides the obvious of flying a drone into somebody, but I don't think you're doing that.
No.
Yeah, I do agree. Also, just would like to say that, like the scenarios that have been broken down, yeah, like for use on injuring somebody, I wouldn't agree on that, but definitely like to communicate to somebody, like for example, if they're having a crisis moment and you don't want to put nobody else life on line and just give communication through the robot, I think that's effective. And also just keeping watch, as you gave on the previous scenario, and just making sure that the person that was outside wasn't going to inflict no harm to himself. But definitely when it comes to putting it to force, yeah, that's a little scary right there.
EQ, does one of our robots, or I know one of our older robots, I don't know if we still have in operations, it was able to actually pull a full-size person out of, conceptually, if they were hurt or injured, we had to pull them out of like a line of fire or out of a hazardous situation. Do we still have that robot?
You're muted.
Sorry, it's the Andros. I think gosh, I don't even know the weight on this robot.
Yeah.
It's a very large robot. It can actually grab a person and pull you to safety. Or or pick somebody up if we need to.
I think if someone's incapacitated and we need to get him out of a hazardous situation. I just didn't know if we decommissioned that robot or not.
No, we still have it.
All right. So I don't know, I'd take a look at other policies. I know, like, I agree with Commissioner Shea. We still want to get into the world of writing force policy around robots, but, you know, see what other agencies are doing. And, you know, obviously in extreme exigent circumstances, lethal encounter situations are to save the life of another individual, might be framing for what we can look at what other agencies do.
All right, why don't we get down to IC deployment authorization, incident commander and lieutenant, rank of lieutenant of police. This detachable tools section does look very interesting. Is this going to be, this should be here actually. Number 3 is the one that you mentioned that could slash tires or break glass.
Correct.
And number 4 is that pan disruptor. That's where I saw a 12 gauge shotgun round. Okay.
If it's, and just throwing this out there, obviously you wanted to see the videos. I know Jennifer and everything, and everyone's kind of like, oh my gosh, these are big knives and everything. I can always take videos and show you next time if that's something that you want. I have no problem with that. I think it just makes it easier sometimes to show what the robot's capable of, and showing you, hey, look, this is what the blade actually looks like. This is slashes the tire. This is what the actual pan disruptor is, and you know what we use it for. We have never used it, but it is an option. So if you prefer that, I don't have a problem actually showing you some training.
Considering our time, yeah, let's do that. Maybe a short clip. You might want to do that also when at some point you're going to be presenting this to public, so that they know what it is that this robot does. Can we get down to prohibited use? So I think you mentioned at the top of this policy that these robots and cameras are not equipped with recording devices, right? They just, or at least something that is recorded, no SIM card, no like data SD card where
Live
video
stream.
can be recorded and put it, it's all live stream, right? And is that what you plan on doing going forward?
I don't, from my knowledge and my understanding, we don't have a capability of having. So if you look at the avatar system that we have, which was the second robot I showed you, I want to say those are from like 2012, 2009. So there is no, and you can't tell the difference between a cardboard box, a garbage can, a person, or a dog. You just know that there's something there. We call it good old trusty, because you can throw it inside and it's not going to break, and it'll go over all the clothes on the floor. Not going to get caught up. The second one has better technology, but it doesn't record either. So it's not the fact of it just doesn't have the capability. I don't know if all the other robots have capabilities now of recording, but I know these don't.
you ever plan on attaching a GoPro or a camera to one of these?
Well, that was something that was discussed with our team, considering the fact that we do have Axon body worn cameras, whether or not we just put Velcro, how do we put Velcro on it, where do we put it, right? But we also figured that the fact of one of the things I didn't put on the LRAD, but it would technically happen is, and I saw other policies have it, is whenever anybody is utilizing LRAD to activate their body worn camera, right? But I think that's already kind of covered for DGO I-15.1. But if you look at these, you're on a critical incident anyways, and you have your body worn camera activated, you are looking at the screen. It's an option that we can look at, is attaching something such as an Axon camera to the robot. We discussed it as a unit. We never came up to kind of a finalized decision on it, only because, is it going to fall off? Is it not? What's the added benefit? So
we reference the use of a body worn camera as following or being in compliance with I-15. So if we do have a need to use an Axon camera on it, that it would be within the parameters of I-15 or the body worn camera policy.
yeah, I guess the only problem we have, I don't think we can. I mean, I guess you can, if we had to turn it off, which I don't see a need, but I'm not sure if we can do that remotely through the cell phone. Once the robot goes in and it's already been activated, then we can't really deactivate the body worn camera.
You couldn't remote turn it off, but you could at least activate it under the same parameters, and then from a video retention standpoint, it would just comply with the Axon body worn camera video retention.
Is that something that we're interested in, or trying to figure out how to put a? I guess I think it also depends on the positioning of the robot. And because if you look at the robot itself, I think there's portions of the robot that are flat. So you'd have to be always maneuvering with an arm at a certain position so you can kind of see it, as opposed to just looking up at a ceiling. So it depends what we're actually using the robot for.
Commissioner Jackson Castade, do you have a thought on this or something else?
It's related, but not specifically on the combining it with another technology. Does the department envision upgrading or acquiring any other robots in the future that might have some enhanced features or capabilities specifically around recording?
Yeah, great question. So if you look at the avatar that I showed you, the second robot, $40,000. The one I showed you, the first one, is $119,000 with everything. I'm looking at additional robots right now, only because the de-escalation and the position that it's put us to mitigate uses of force and resolve situations and greatly. I'm currently looking at one that costs about anywhere between $175 to $250. And I think it'd be a great tool to OPD, but it is in the 250 mark. I believe that one actually records.
So it might behoove us to include some sort of clause around recording or retaining information.
Why don't we do this, since we're at 7:54?
Let's see.
10TQ, do you mind us or sharing with the group links to the 3 robots, the avatar, the other one,
I'll send you all. Yep.
and the third one, the one that you're
gonna have a hard one with the poll cam, because I can't find that specific link, but I'll share you all the links with the robots.
Yeah, so that we have a sense of what capabilities there are and whether, especially the one you're thinking about, and whether to craft policy or think about specific scenarios for use or prohibited use in this policy.
I specifically drafted this policy to allow us to purchase the other one if we wanted to. So we're leaving specific words out so that it gave us the opportunity to look at that one, so we would be able to.
There's that too. Yep. Yep. And we can sort of come back to this. This one's an AB 481 policy, right? Not the local ordinance. Okay. Should we sign you up for Wednesday? This one for Wednesday as well? Does that work out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's AB 481. I don't know whether it's local.
I don't think it's local because I think it's, well, let me just check to be sure. It doesn't matter. We're coming back on Wednesday for it. Right. Okay. Lieutenant Toribio, is that how I pronounce your last name? I'm so sorry.
No, it's perfect. Toribio's perfect.
Toribio, I am very sorry that we did not get to you. It took up a little bit too much time with all the robots and the LRADs. Maybe you could give us just a 2-minute cap on who you are and what you plan to bring us rifles, and if you can come back on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm I'm an acting lieutenant, watch commander for weekends during swing shift or second watch in Bureau of Field Operations 1, so areas 1, 2, and 3. I've been with the department about 16 years now, a little over 16 years, and have been an instructor for our patrol rifle program for a number of years now. I spent about 4+ years in the training division with the range staff, and been working on an update to Department General Order K6. So it was last updated, I believe, in 2008. So we've evolved quite a bit since then, and some things that we're looking to update in the policy, obviously, are some logging and reporting of deployment per AB 481 and the modifications it made to Government Code 7070. Something that is in policy, that's in the current policy that needs revision, is it lists kind of deployment criteria. But there isn't really a specified, fleshed out section for prohibited uses. And we've operated under the assumption that, hey, if it's not mentioned in policy, then it's not going to be an authorized deployment. But so, currently working on, fleshing out, and that's still the assumption, but working on fleshing out some specific, instances where it's outlined where they're going to be prohibited uses. Adding a lot of verbiage to incorporate things that we've included in the program over recent years regarding the testing process and the process for selection, officers that demonstrate proficiency in communication and writing skills, and understanding of de-escalation principles that are in line with our organization's, policy and vision, and policy pertaining to our uses of force. We've also added additional training to go beyond simply, like a quarterly marksmanship training. We're doing more reality-based training to include practical field application and critical incident management. So all of that stuff we're now kind of migrating into this this updated policy that I'm looking to present to you next time.
Awesome. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Is Monday going to be enough time for you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And do you think you could get that policy to us by sometime this week so we have the opportunity to look at it before Monday?
Oh, for sure. I'm hoping by Thursday I can get it sent out to everybody. So you guys have time to look at it and aren't just sitting through a presentation on it without having a general idea of kind of, what it's gonna have.
All right. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. We will see you on Monday. Look forward to reviewing that policy and hearing from you about some of the changes we're making. So just so everyone's on the same page, we are coming back Monday. We're going to be and twice weekly now, on Mondays and on Wednesdays from 6 to 8. You have not yet convinced me to go past 8 o'clock. But we'll see where we get in a few weeks. Thank you all so much. And Ms. Two.
Sorry, for Monday, aside from, will it just be the assault rifles or will there? Okay,
I think we'll take up what we were going to take up today, which is flashbangs, tear gas, less lethals. I will send an email out so that everyone knows and are on the same page. Thank you for that reminder.
awesome, thank you.
DQ, are you going to join us on Monday?
Are my policies on Monday? I'll be at work. So.
Well, I think we're going to try to queue up all of yours for Wednesday, unless you want them spread out somewhat.
Yes.
Okay, I'll save you on Monday night.
Okay.
All right, thank you all. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Thank you.